Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
And I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, on YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield. You can also find us on Rumble. We broadcast every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We go over cop-related movies or crime-related movies, usually with retired law enforcement, and we evaluate the movie based upon what we see in the movie, our own experiences, and what is going on today. And, this is, God, I'm coming up on this. I think this is about a year ago that I started doing this show on Pop Culture Minefield, and it's been a good run. Now, every show I take the time to talk about the Los Angeles mission. The Los Angeles mission is in downtown Los Angeles. It provides wraparound services or just basically services in need for the people on Skid Row, and there it is, losangelesmission.org. They provide over 400,000 meals a year. They provide temporary beds for people who want to get off the streets, a place to get cleaned up, just basic underwear and socks for the folks who are not quite ready to get off the street yet, but do need some level of services. They also provide wraparound services when they are ready to get off the street and help them to reintegrate in society. They've been doing a great work for over 85 years. Go to the losangelesmission.org, make a donation today. Do your part to deal with this homeless problem. I have another show. The other show is Briefing with the Chief, and that is on KGRA's Rumble channel. It broadcasts every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on that show, I do go over politics, public policy, and in the news, and I do talk about homelessness. And, over the last several weeks, I got a chance to interview 4 of the 11 people running against George Gascon for DA here in the county of Los Angeles. I wanted to encourage you to go to the KGRADB.com, go to KGRDB.com, go to the Shows and Host tab, and go to Briefing with the Chief tab, and hit that, and you'll find the audio versions of all of my shows at the bottom of that page. And I want to encourage you, if you are in Los Angeles County and you are voting today, to listen to those shows involving those candidates. I also have somebody who's running for the 40th Assembly District, Patrick Gibson. So if you live up there in Northridge, Santa Clarita, Pollo Ranch area, and you need to make a decision on the assembly candidate, you can listen to his interview. And I also interviewed Clint Carlton, who's running for the 2nd Supervisorial District in Los Angeles County against Holly Mitchell, who's really an anti-police person. So I would love for you to go and listen to his interview, and certainly get out to vote if you are one of those Super Tuesday states. Now, on that show, I also am, next week, I'm going to be interviewing somebody from Cook County, Illinois, because they got a Soros-funded DA, Kim Fox, of the Jussie Smollett fame. She's not running, and they're trying to replace her with a like-minded DA, and I interview somebody from the Chicago Contrarian who gives another point of view, because it's kind of a corrupt cesspool over there. And that magazine is trying to give a counter argument to the liberal narrative that goes on in that city every single day. And actually, their candidate, the candidate that they've been pushing, Judge O'Neill Burke, is gaining ground and is now in the lead in the polls, which is really good. And we also have that same situation here in Los Angeles, that that Gascon will not win in the primary. We'll have to go into a general election. But I got somebody coming on in a couple of weeks from Texas, and We're going to talk to that person about what's going on with Jose Garza in Travis County, Texas, also another Soros-funded DA, and their efforts to get that man out of office. I think there are really two big races going on in my mind nationally. One is the presidential race, Trump versus Biden, and the other one are these little fights in all of these jurisdictions where they have Soros-funded DAs. These are the two biggest national things going on. So that's enough politics for today, at least unless it relates to the movie. And we're going to get into the movie here in a minute here. We're going to do the movie 48 Hours. But before I do talk about the movie, let's bring on our guest. He's been on the show before. It's retired deputy sheriff Mike Ascolese. Now, normally he comes on with his friend Kevin Major Howard. I don't know. How is Kevin doing these days, Mike?
He's healing up very well, thank you. The surgeries went well, and he's doing fine.
Well, when he's fully recovered, we'll have to ask him what his favorite cop movie is and bring him on again, and so that we can see him and see that he's all healthy. But Mike and I worked together at the West Hollywood Sheriff Station for many years, and we've been friends. Now, Mike is a California refugee. He left all these crazy politics behind and went somewhere else. He's incommunicado. He's not telling anybody where he's at because he don't want any of these leftists to come after him. And what do you think of my lead-in, Mike? I am trying to fight the fight against these liberal Soros-funded DAs with my other show, and I've actually been gaining some ground. People are noticing. I did they did an editorial for Gascon, so I'll share this with you guys because it's and in which they attacked all the other candidates. They, Gascon walks on water. He's this great guy, and of course his policies are causing people to die, and that seems to be what the editorial pages are saying about him. And yet they turn around and they bash the candidates who are running against him. Many of them who've been in the criminal justice system for decades and done great work. And one of them I took to task. I called him a leftist hack on my show twice because he called some of the judges hyperbolic and shrill. And yet when I had the judges on and they explain why they're angry, it's pretty clear they're angry because his policies are hurting the public. And so I called that guy out, and that guy responded on Twitter, well, a hack, yes, but left wing, no. So they're actually, these guys, I'm attacking these columnists, and now they're actually following me on Twitter to tell me what they, just to target me, I guess. So I'm having an impact, I guess. But what do you think about these Soros-funded DAs before we get in our movie?
Well, I mean, obviously I had to deal with Gascon like everybody else when I was in LA. I applaud your efforts. It just takes one person to stand up, and then the next person, and to shed light on this. This is horrible. I remember one judge in downtown LA that refused to take a deal on a gangster and flat out told the DA in there, he says, I don't take marching orders from your boss. He goes, the laws are here. This is, you've established all the things, and whatever enhancement, it was a gang enhancement. Right. He says, I'm imposing it. And he stood up to him. But the more people that can see the truth, how people are being impacted by this, then we can get these people out of the office. They need to go.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow I have 3 editorials, and John Bayless, remember John? He's going to come on with me, and we're going to deconstruct. We're going to point out the falsehoods in all of these editorials, because they take a little kernel of truth and talk about that kernel of truth, and then they expand, right? Well, we're gonna identify those things, and then we're going to teach the people on the editorial pages of the LA Times, Pasadena Star News, and Cal Matters, how to actually do research and find out what the truth is before they spin their lies. So it'll be a fun show tomorrow. But hey, today we're going to do the movie 48 Hours, which is really one of the cop buddy movies, even though we don't have 2 cops that are buddies. We have 1 cop and 1 crook. And I have to tell you, this film came out in 1982, an American buddy cop action comedy, which it was. It's a funny movie. I know I enjoyed it. And it stars Nick Nolte and a very young Eddie Murphy. And this, for me, I wasn't a huge, I worked at night, so I wasn't a huge Saturday Night Live fan. And this is where Eddie Murphy started, right? I just didn't watch it because I was too busy working, and that really wasn't my thing, anyways. But he got picked out of that to do this movie, and it really launched his his movie career. Now, when I did my research on this, they originally wanted to use Clint Eastwood and Richard Pryor on this, which I just can't see it. I can't see. I mean, when we see these two guys do it, I just can't see Clint and Richard Pryor substituting and being as successful as these guys. But this did launch Eddie Murphy's career, right?
Yeah, and I think you were talking about Richard Pryor. He was funny, but he was funny when he was with Gene Wilder.
Oh, yes.
Those two were a good combination. But I think Nolte and Murphy were perfect.
Yeah, I can't imagine, that you remember, we'll get into the scenes, but the fight scene, I can't see Richard Pryor actually, because Clint is he's taller than Nick Nolte. So I can't see them pulling out that scene where Richard Pryor would hold his ground against somebody like Clint Eastwood. But I could see that with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, as we saw in the scene. Right, Martine?
Yeah. I don't know. Man, I have seen this movie so many times that I cannot see anybody else doing it. And most probably, even if they do a good work, I would say, Novelty and Eddie was better.
Yeah, they had good chemistry.
Good chemistry. Eddie, if you watched him in the beginning when the two fought, he actually had a good stance and a good boxing ability.
Yes,
he had some training.
Yeah. Yeah, I never saw Richard Pryor as being a tough guy, right? He's what do they say? You're too shrunk up. That's what bodybuilders. Hey, man, you're too sucked up, man. And there's nothing there, right? And I was working with this guy. Do you remember Mackenzie Allen? He was the actor that was a reserve, and we were dealing with a bodybuilder. And I'm not exactly a small guy. I wouldn't say I'm a big guy, but I'm not a small guy either. And we were dealing with this bodybuilder, and I think he was doing meth or something like that, which I don't understand. Why would bodybuilders do meth? But he was huge, and he just looked at Mackenzie, he was on The Bold and the Beautiful. Do you remember that? Yeah, The Bold and the Beautiful. It was a daytime television soap opera. And he looks at him and says, "No, you're all sucked up, man." Because he was so skinny. You have to look thin, I guess, to be on TV. Yeah, he was a good guy. He went up being a cop up in Washington State, I think. But yeah, I really like this movie because it was funny and it was enjoyable. This is a good escapism movie. It's not realistic that we're going to go and get some prisoner out of jail and then use him as a partner to track down criminals. The best case scenario, you might take him out of prison and take him to a sheriff's station and gather more information and have access to him. I know of situations where they've done that, but I've never, ever heard of this where they're driving around investigating a crime together. So obviously the premise is absurd. But it's a funny movie and an enjoyable movie, right?
It was Hannibal Lecter before Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike? Enjoyable, fun movie?
I think it was terrific. I thought both movies were great, but the first one definitely put the cement down for everything, and it affected other movies that came after it. It was one of the very first buddy type movies. They were really good together. Everything. Was fun. Even the music, when he sees him in the jail for the first time, he's listening to The Police of all things.
I thought that scene was iconic, and I got it as one of the scenes we're going to talk about here. But they also had some really good. When I was going through who's in the movie, the more movies I do, the more people I recognize that are. So we had three guys who were in Warriors, the movie Warriors, which I did. I don't know, Martine, how long would I do that? A couple months ago.
What? 3? I only
the 3 bad guys.
I'll count 2. I count James Remar. And oh my God,
David Patrick Kelly.
Who's the third one?
The Indian.
Billy
Barrett.
He played one of the
Billy?
cops. Yes,
he was in the Warriors.
Yeah,
oh man,
and I remembered it. I go, yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
I remember him from Predator.
Yeah, and it's so he was in the Warriors too. So this is a remake, and the interesting thing is Raymar and David Patrick Kelly had pretty good roles in Warriors and memorable roles. And so it's and the other thing is I remember Raymar, one of the shows that I really liked him in. I think he played in the Cotton Club. He played the gangster. Oh God! Now I'm losing it. The Dutchman, Dutch Schultz. I think he played Dutch Schultz in the Cotton Club, and I remember him from that, and liked him in that movie as well. And of course, David Patrick Kelly has been in a couple of the John Wick movies as well. So some good folks. Obviously, Sonny, he was in Predator. Sonny Landham. He was the Predator as well. But so it was a good staff. Let's roll the first scene, the bad guys, and we'll set up what's going on here with two of our guys who were also in the movie The Warriors.
Backwards.
Yeah, that is.
It's got to be that way, yeah. For strikes.
The little tricks that we use to avoid strikes.
I thought you were messing with my head.
It's copyright strikes, yeah. Now, Mike, okay. I mean, we never worked chain gangs, but I wouldn't be, shotguns. I mean, it'd be pretty heavy carrying a shotgun all day as these guys are working out in the field, right? You at least have a strap on it, so that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
probably,
this was a la Cool Hand Luke.
I know. Yeah, I know. And not a lot of sweat on their t-shirts, on their shirts there. So.
Oh, they have a good climate there.
They have a good climate. Yeah, it's a dry heat. Yeah, I know. But this guy, Sonny, I really like his. He did actually study acting, and he actually did porn too, believe it or not. But I like his character here is the Indian, and this, of course, is all a setup. But this cop is just way too close to these guys.
Yeah.
Way too close. And you don't, usually you're standing off with the guns and you have the unarmed guys that are close. But,
out of the reach of their tools, preferably.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But hey, this is Hollywood, so everybody's got to fit into the frame, right? And so here he's calls them chief, and he insults them, and of course the fight is to get them on the ground so they get a chance to pull out. The cop never gets a chance to search, because I would have never let him get that close. I'd say, hey, stay at the truck, I'll come talk to you, right? So there's a lot of things that he's doing wrong here. So here's Ajax from Warrior. What's his character name here, I guess? Oh, it's Ajax from Warriors, but I'm forgot his character.
I don't know.
Oh, in the movie. I got
in this one, Albert Gans.
Yeah, Gans. That's it. Yeah. So here's the fight, and obviously the Indians got a gun on him, and they end up. So here they're mixed up. I mean, I'm just thinking, oh my God.
He's also got no radio on him.
Well, I mean, that's probably. I mean, we didn't get radios till. I mean, this is the early '80s. We can get radios till, I think, what, late '80s, something like that. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. You came on. Yeah. Did you have a radio when you first started? Because
no.
Yeah.
No.
This way you had to use your flashlight to, hey, call for help. Flag down the helicopter flying by if they're coming for help. So they both get guns and they shoot this guy. And as we all know, you don't always go down in the first round. So anyway, so this is Hollywood, and he's got more cops. So, and it's like, well, how come these guys aren't paying attention to what's going on? How come they have to get up out of their chair to find out what's going on? So these guys, they are running away. So our two bad guys, one of them's in custody, the other one breaks him out, and these guys have been in a gang of criminals, and they're going to go and try and get the loot from their robbery. So both these guys, what'd you think of the scene, Mike? I mean, obviously I was already doing some editorial on some bad tactics, but also a cool truck.
Oh, it was a great truck. Now, see, today's society, if it was LA County, I don't think Gascon would actually charge him with anything.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, they'd have charged, the shooting would have been charged as a battery. Oh, yeah, okay, guy's in the hospital for a couple of years, but hey, we'll just charge him with battery. And,
he was defending himself, sir. It was not.
These guys were threatening because they had uniforms and guns, and so he was scared, and so he's defending himself. I watched The Fall of Minneapolis, and I'm going to do that show on here, and I'll have to. It's a documentary, actually, and
I saw it happening live.
Right, and well, they wouldn't let them put on their riot gear in a riot because they didn't want to offend the crowd. I'm like, because they were afraid it might inflame them. Well, and I'm thinking, you have an obligation to your employees to let them protect themselves, and they didn't. And it's crazy. I watched that, and I'll do a show on it eventually, but on both platforms. But it's crazy. It's crazy that the way they're thinking now. But anyways, in this scene, good truck. That's an old Ford, right? And or was it a Chevy?
I think it was a Chevy.
Chevy. Yeah, I'd like, and we'll talk about the caddy that's coming up in this movie. But I just thought it was a great show. I don't know. Obviously, they had the hay. He must have stole it because they didn't show that. But he had hay to make him really look like a farmer. Martin, what'd you think of the scene?
Well, you said everything we really noted worthy of notice, like the police too close to the prisoners, and I always found odd that those two bloodthirsty guys didn't finish off the third guard. It was for plot convenience because those two surely they must have gone and just for fun killed the third guard.
Yeah, they are well because later in the movie they do that. He was armed with a shotgun. I mean that is the great equalizer, and these guys are, and that's the other thing. They're armed. What is it? What's the old statistics? Let's see. I used to remember this. So 70%. I guess there was a lot of sevens. 70% of let's see, in police shootings, they are usually 7 feet apart. There's usually happen within 7 seconds, and 70% of the rounds fired are misses by both parties. Isn't that interesting? So here we got these guys who are shooting from farther away, and they're hitting these guys. And the reason why that is when you have your handgun and people are farther away, what you're doing is you're healing. You heal the gun, so you're healing the butt of the gun in a combat shooting situation, and you're slapping the trigger. Both of those cause you to pull off target, and the more stress you are under, the greater the likelihood you're going to do that, which is why that's why you have to train shooting all the time, because it's all muscle memory. And if you panic and you're not trained properly, there's going to be a lot of misses. I don't know if you ever heard that before, Mike, but I always remember that because there was a lot of sevens there. But that's what happens when you get in these combat situations. That's why some of these things are unrealistic, that these criminals who aren't training all the time on their guns are able to hit the cops where 15,
They're always
20
a better
feet away.
shot. Now, you know what muscle controls your trigger finger, right?
What's that?
Your sphincter muscle.
Okay.
By the way, that Chevy was a 51.
Oh, 51? Okay. All right. It's cool cars. I like the old cars, but I grew up in Detroit, so you saw a lot of those, and a lot of those old engineers that I worked at Chevy and Ford, whatever, they always were big into restoring those cars, what they used to build on the assembly line as well. Okay, hey, let's get into our next character, and that is Jack Cates, and he is he's the first scene we see him. He's with the beautiful Annette O'Toole. Do you remember her? I can't remember all the movies she was in, but when I saw her, I go, oh, I remember her from back in the day.
She did some great movies, and she also was in Nash Bridges for a long time.
Oh, she was?
Yeah, she was the main character's ex-wife. So she was in a lot.
Yeah, I like her, and this is the perpetually angry cop girlfriend because she's got too much going on. And I will say, I've interviewed quite a few homicide guys. Let's see, well, the one that I most Danny R. Smith. I don't know if you've seen his books, Mike, but he was on the sheriff's department, and they talk about the commitment working homicide. So it's true. If you're working homicide, you're constantly going because the case dictates when you're working and what you're doing, right? And if I know it. There's it's on right now. It's on TV right now. First 48.
Yes.
It's a crime drama, and they talk about the first 48 is the likelihood of solving the case is in that first 48 hours. The things that you do and the things that happen, the evidence you collect in those first 40 hours increases the likelihood you're going to solve the case. So obviously, I don't think they're taking inspiration from this movie. That's just the reality of homicide investigations, right? Before people can hide evidence, make up their excuses, or whatever they're going to do, you want to nail down that evidence. And so we got this, and of course, Nolte also plays this guy that's kind of on the edge, probably a drinker. Clearly, he's a smoker, right? And he's the sloppy but tough cop. Is what he's playing there
in the movie, including the scene that you've got. Excuse me. He had a flask on him that he poured in the coffee.
Yeah.
So during the movie, a few times he hits it.
And so there's the caddy. So, but this is also in San Francisco. So this is a la Dirty Harry, right? So this is because that's where Dirty Harry is based, right? San Francisco, Inspector Callahan. And we got Jack Cates here, and I think that's also David Patrick Kelly there in this scene with his girlfriend, right? So we got the cop is a burly, brisk, drinking, smoking, and like Dirty Harry, willing to cut corners to achieve his objective, right? That's who Jack Cates is.
Yeah, he's very much
not very fond of the paperwork.
Yeah, and nobody ever has to fill out the paperwork. Obviously, Dirty Harry, he's a little more of a class act in his kind of vigilantism towards, or his extrajudicial methods, right?
Yeah.
Than Cates here. But I like this character. I think in terms of, I always liked Nick Nolte. I liked him, and remember when his breakout role was actually a TV miniseries.
Rich Man, Poor Man.
Yeah, Rich Man, Poor Man. I liked him in that. I think he played a great character as the younger brother. Or was he younger or older? I think he was older brother than was Peter Strauss played the other main character in that series, and then. But he also, who was the main bad guy that he fought all the time? He was in Every Which Way with Clint Eastwood. He's a boxer. I can't think of his name now.
His last name's Smith.
Yeah, he's the tough guy. And he was the real deal. He was, a pugilist, a fighter. So he was somebody who actually knew what he was doing. But he played that stuff in the movies. He was a real tough guy. But Jack Cates is the ever-suffering girlfriend, Annette O'Toole. Martine, what'd you think? Same thing? Kind of same comments? This is the classic disorganized, Slavic a little bit, but tough.
Yeah.
Character.
Yes, but I know.
Unorthodox.
Yeah, it has this character. It has a little twisted sense of humor. He can be ranting, and at the same time he's throwing some dark jokes.
Yeah.
I like this archetype.
By the way, that actor you're looking for was William Smith.
William Smith, yeah, he plays a tough guy in a lot of these films, and I'm trying to think of. I remember from Every Which Way from Lucy, he was boxing, but he played a lot of the tough guy roles. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Well, obviously, but anyways, I like Jack. I always like Nick Nolte. I know he's had his substance abuse problems, but he is, in my mind, he's always been very good in everything I've seen him in. It's too bad that he had to fight addiction like he did, because I think he probably could have been much more productive as an actor had he not gone through those personal struggles, right?
He had some good flicks. He had North Dallas 40, Cape Fear, the remake of Cape Fear.
Fantastic.
And then The Prince of Tides opposite Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
They were all great roles.
Yeah. No, it was, he was a little old for it, but there was the Thin Red Line. You remember the army one where he was, and so he's been fairly prolific. The last one I was watching him, he was doing a series. I want to say it was Lucky. It was kind of a racehorse series, but the racehorses kept dying in this series. I want to say it was HBO or maybe it was Showtime. And so, but he, it's, and we just before we came on, folks, we were talking about how drugs, because Mike was talking about somebody that's in this movie who got addicted to drugs, and he had been involved in the rest of her. And I felt in the 80s and 90s how drugs actually destroyed a whole generation of people. And certainly in the entertainment industry, a lot of people who were up and comers, they started using coke or meth or heroin, and it led them down the wrong path and completely destroyed their lives. Nolte was enough of a bankable star that he could overcome it. But, I mean, you look at John Belushi, right? I mean, here's this guy. Yeah, he was up and coming, and he took what was they call it, a when you have heroin and cocaine, it's got a certain name for it. Speedball. Yeah, he took a speedball and it killed him in that what's a Chateau
Marmont.
Chateau Marmont near West Hollywood. So here it is. I mean, I love Nick Nolte, but he got into these addiction issues, and it probably completely altered his career. And I mean, he was in one with Meryl Streep. What was that? Oh, that was Prince of Tides, wasn't it? What? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Prince of Tides, but I thought that was Streisand, wasn't it?
No,
maybe
it
was Streisand.
That wasn't with Meryl. And I think they hated each other.
Oh, did they hate each other?
Yes.
They were probably in a movie together then, which caused them to hate each other, I guess. But I always liked Meryl Streep, but I don't like her politics. And also, since she was very close friends with Harvey Weinstein, and she clearly knew what was going on.
She even called him God in
at the Academy Awards, and so they knew what was going on, and they didn't do anything to shut it down. But I like Nick Nolte to this day, and I would watch him in future stuff. Although he's a little long in the tooth now, but he's a good actor. Now he's relegated to being a character actor as an older guy. But let's get into what really causes Jack Cate to take this personal, and that is the shooting scene. And it's funny, these guys, they say they don't want this guy's help before they go up to knock on the door. They don't want Jack's help. I don't think I would have ever said that. I'd say, yeah, come on up, man. Just do it on the hallway. Just lay back and see what happens, right? I wouldn't have been. I don't, because I was a detective doing door knocks. I would never said no to anybody's help, even if it was the star detective who took all the glory, which is what they imply here. And here's the other thing, and I felt this way. I can't remember the last movie we did, Martine, where it was everybody's got like a chief. They have these small guns, and these guys are carrying chiefs, right? And they're going in this thing. I don't know if they think it's going to be a violent felon, but whenever I served search warrants or whenever I served arrest warrants, if I was in a suit, because I worked for a guy who made us wear a suit. So all the detectives at West Hollywood wore a suit at the time, Maynard Davis. And so what we would do, bulletproof vests don't really work well with a suit. So what you do is, before you go serve, you throw the vest on, right? And then you throw your jacket over it, and then you go knock on the door. So these guys aren't wearing bulletproof vests. And I used to serve a lot with this one guy, and he would carry a small 5-shot until we were going. And then he'd get a 686 out, a 4.5-inch 686. And that's when we did the door knock. That's what he carried, right? So here this guy gets shot, not wearing his vest, and I guess that's early 80s. That's not unusual. You know what else I notice about this? You notice how they're holding their guns up, Mike?
Yeah, instead of where they're looking, they're straight up.
They're straight up. The other thing, 25 years later, everybody's doing the whole sideways thing. You know what I mean? And the movie's like, how are you going to hit? I was like, why do they do that in this movie? You can't hit anything when you're. What's the sideways stuff? Because that's
a gangster thing.
It's a cool looking thing, but it doesn't work that way. Right. I mean, you're completely thrown off on because how do you look down the barrel of that gun and line up your sights doing that stupid stuff?
That is a fighting method developed by the Israeli special forces.
Really?
They point with their index finger. That's how they're pointing, and rotating the gun in that direction. It makes the recoil, instead of going to the side, is only up and down. So you mostly keep pointing in the same direction.
Well, when I go shooting, I'll have to try that. But it seems to me that would be more. You could do that if it's close quarter shooting.
Yeah.
You got to remember when that round ejects, if you're holding it with the port up, it's going to hit you. And hot brass doesn't feel good.
Well, even when you're just pointing it like we would be normally trained, that stuff hits you too.
Right.
It goes down your, did you ever have one go down your uniform shirt or?
I've seen it.
I've seen it too.
I used to shoot a lot with in my suit because it's chief. That's what I'm wearing a suit, or a captain, whatever. And so you're all buttoned up so it doesn't go down there. But every now and then you shoot in uniform and it lands right there and goes down it's timed. So you got to keep shooting. So, which is what you need to be doing in a real shootout anyways. But these guys get in a shootout and now this guy, Jonathan Banks, did you recognize him? He's the guy that the shooting happens. Cates goes up. The one guy gets killed, and this other guy is trying to carry on the fight, but he gets hit, and Cates goes up and sees, and then he goes back down to take these guys on. But he comes down the stairways with his chief. It's empty, and he's shooting. Do you know what series he's on or was on recently? Okay, what is it?
I don't know recently, but he was in one of my favorites. He was in Wise Guy. When I was a kid, he was in Gremlins.
Okay.
So
all
he's
right.
done a bunch of stuff. He did Highlander, Airplane, the comedy Airplane.
Yeah. Art Martine, more contemporary series that he's on. And I'm going to say it, and you're going to go, "Oh yeah."
Well, I recognize almost all of the one you have talked about. I used to watch the Wise Guy, but I can't.
Better Call Saul.
Oh.
Better Call Saul. He plays the tough old guy.
Oh yeah,
so
and
Better Call,
of course in Breaking Bad,
and Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Yeah, he's on both of them. He's got a bigger role in Better Call Saul, but he's in Breaking Bad as well. And you can see him. He's a good character actor. He's worked a lot, so that's good. But here's the other. So Cates has got his gun here, right? And he's giving it to him, and they got a hostage. The lady at the counter, right?
I don't see why he surrendered his gun, because
you never
exactly, because
yes, that's for starters. You never surrender your gun. But the other thing is the only people who's been threatened is the other guy, the other police officer.
Yeah.
By Billy, who is the only bad guy with a gun.
Yeah.
And he is pointing his gun at Billy, who has no human shield. Yeah, why do you give up your gun? Just shoot Billy. That's it.
Exactly. And then what does Banks say? Shoot them, Jack. Don't give up your gun. He's already been hit. I don't know if he thinks he's dying or not, but he. Yeah, you do. There's always a little bit of payback when you get shot. You don't want it. No, just shoot these guys. And now that you see them, now you're gonna have to go watch Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I agree with you, Martine. Why the heck are you giving up your gun? Now you've lost all the advantage. And of course, he's already killed one cop, likely killed one cop, and now he's going to kill the two of you. So now you have. So yeah, we were always taught don't give up your gun. Right, Mike?
That's a steadfast rule. Period.
No, don't give up your gun, because that's. And then you're at a disadvantage, and anybody that is shooting at you, they've not demonstrated a set of values and standards and norms to live by that you have confidence that they won't shoot you after you give up the gun, right?
Right. Yeah. We don't shoot you. We promise.
I will say, this guy Ramers, I really do like his character, Gantz. I think he plays a really good bad guy in this show, and he's of all the actors in this, I think he really helps make the show as well. I mean, of the three, you got even more so than Sonny here. You got Nolte, Eddie Murphy, but I really think Raymer really does a good job as a bad guy.
Yes, he was a memorable character. I remember this was the first time I saw him, and from now on, whenever I say, "Oh, it's Gantz."
Yeah, or Ajax from from the Warriors. But yeah, no, I think he helped make the movie because he plays a pretty good psycho, and he is a stone cold killer. But this is what it makes it personal for Nick, right? Or Nick Nolte now, or Jake. They killed two of his friends, even though they had this rivalry going on. They were his friends. They worked in his department. They were detectives, and he was there. And he gave up his gun. And now the other part that makes it personal for him is Gantz has his gun, which I think is a 44. I think they allude to it that it's a 44, which is, I always see these throwbacks to other movies, right? So Dirty Harry came out before this, and Dirty Harry carries what?
44 mag.
44 mag. Now, Kate's is looks like a 4 inch, and Harry's is a 6 inch, but it's still a 44, right? So there's another throwback. I think there's another. Well, it's not a throwback, but it in terms of pop culture minefield and movies and taking license from one movie to another, and I bet you guys will know it, but that's coming up in the future. So this is now it's personal for Cates, and he wants these guys, and he begins the investigation. He goes back to his detective bureau. Of course, you've been involved in the shooting, Mike. We both know he ain't going back to do any investigation for a couple of days, right?
They're he's gonna be debriefed forever.
He's going to be this. He's not going to be leading the investigation, no matter how much he wants to do it. He's going to be removed from that investigation. Some other homicide investigator is going to go in place, and he's going to be asked, "Why'd you give up a gun? Why'd you do this?" He's going to. Well, he's not going to be writing paper. He might write one piece of paper, but everything else will be written for him. But he's going to be sitting down. And then they're going to take him off his job for 5 days, right? At least on the sheriff's department. I think most major agencies have rules like that, right? So that part is pretty unrealistic, right?
Right, and he's going to have to see the psych before he comes back.
Yes, yeah. That's. I'm trying to remember. Was that something that was implied? I didn't have to. It probably explains a lot of things. When I joined, you didn't have to go to a psych.
Yeah, he. I mean, now you got the death of 2 officers, and he's lost his gun. So yeah. He's going to have to make sure his marbles are rolling in the right direction before he goes back.
Yeah, plus he's a little bit, he's already off kilter already. He's is just his normal personality, which is kind of makes for, obviously it kind of makes for the movies, right? Or for the movie, his character. But he puts it together. I like how they're in the detective bureau, basically. And he's barking out orders, and people are and he within 2 minutes he links up. Oh, wait a minute, there's this dead body here. He's related to that guy. Here's that dead body. Did you see that? The Asian guy that got killed, that got shot in the head, they recognized him. And within 5 minutes he puts it together. These guys have come back to probably find their score and deal with people that are part of a previous robbery crew, and he realizes that the other person in that robbery crew, or the other person in that theft crew, is Reggie Hammond. And so he's just got to find out where Reggie Hammond, and this is where Eddie Murphy comes in. And I think, let's go ahead, and I got Reggie Hammond as this scene. Let's go ahead and play this scene. Now, Mike, I think this scene was iconic for me. Eddie Murphy singing off key, out loud, Roxanne. And as soon as I thought about doing this movie, this is the scene I thought about. He's walking down the roads. It looks like almost like Central Jail, the bars here, right? It's very similar to what we have at Central Jail and the old Hall of Justice Jail, right?
Right.
And of course, and he's sitting in there, and he's in a like almost like a lazy boy chair, which is that, of course, is not true. But he's just singing Roxanne out loud with the old what was it, Walkman? The old Walkman cassettes. And I thought this was an iconic scene, and this wouldn't happen in normal jail because these guys were thumping him up for making all this noise, right? But what do you think? Iconic scene? You think when you think
it was never forgotten. Definitely, I think that's the right word for it. Even the way he sang it off key, you never forgot it. It was a great song. It was current at that time, and Eddie Murphy hammed it up. But yeah, that Barker Lounger, that's pretty funny.
and so Martine, same thing. You think of this scene when you think of the movie 48 Hours, and he's intentionally singing off key, right? That's the comedic part of this.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've noticed when you have headphones, you tend to sing off key.
I think this is what they call cringe funny. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's cringe. It's funny, but it's cringe. It's cringe funny, and of course he yells in the Walkman's ear, yells in Eddie Murphy's ears, and they have this exchange, and this is a snippy exchange which starts this relationship, and I think some of the things he says, I thought you were a smart boy. So here's the other thing. The language in the movie is not politically correct.
Oh no,
because he calls him a boy, and heaven forbid you do that these days. There's comedy is on its heels with all this wokeness. What, right, Martin?
I like to clarify in the slides the N word is going to appear,
yes.
and as well as others. But to the Nick Nolte's character's credit, he later apologized and said, I was doing it on purpose so I could keep you down because you're a convict and I don't know you, blah, blah, blah. But I don't feel that way. I like that when they're when they're finally are opening to each other.
So I joined in 83. So this movie came out in 82. I would tell you that the N-word simply was not used that much at all, in law enforcement.
I believe
it just wasn't. I mean,
popularized it.
Yeah, I think that it's popularized in the movies way more than anything else. And the other thing about it is your coworkers, man. Everybody was different, and so it's not that you were on guard with your coworkers. It's just you had respect for them, so you didn't use stupid language like that. And if you were you just purged it out of your. If you were somebody who used it, you purged it out of your vocabulary because it just wasn't right. So. But Cates is coming on to him pretty strong, like, hey, I'm the guy in charge, you're not. And he's starting to get the information from him, although Eddie Murphy's only kind of, it's kind of a dripping, information is kind of dripping out a little bit. He's controlling the information flow because he doesn't know how much Cates knows, and he doesn't want to let Cates know everything, right? Because he's got something to protect, and that's the money. Mike, so what'd you think of the scene, this first exchange? It starts the building of the buddy relationship, but it starts as adversaries, right?
Yeah, and Eddie Murphy's got a little more of a grip on it because he's only got 6 months to go.
Right.
So it's not until Nolte drops Gans's name and he realizes his money's going for a possible ride without him. Up to that, he didn't need to help him. But he wanted his money, and Gans is the guy who double crossed him and sent him to jail, anyways.
Right, and he knows, and although he knows Luther comes in here. He knows Luther. He believes Luther won't betray him, but Luther has a real incentive ultimately to betray him, and that's because his girlfriend is kidnapped. But one of the things as they get into the discussion, and Eddie Murphy's seeing this as an equal partnership. Which is to some degree it is. They both need something and they need each other for it. And Kate says, okay, fine. And then he obviously is where he tells him Gans is out. But ultimately later on in the scene, he's got him handcuffed. That's not necessary. I thought we were partners. I think Eddie Murphy says that. And of course, Jack Cates, Nick Nolte's character, says, we ain't partners, we ain't brothers, and we ain't friends, right? So he makes it very clear what this relationship about. Ultimately, it changes, which I think is unrealistic. Again, convict and cop chasing the bad guys together. Because keep in mind, they took down a big score, which, as Mike and I both know, if you are a criminal, and you take down a big score, it doesn't just happen your first time. You've been doing this for a long time, right? You've done multiple scores, and you see the police as the enemy. You may trust that the police are going to live according to certain standards and maybe utilize that to your benefit, but you don't see them as your buddy or your friend or anybody, anything like that, right, Mike?
Yeah, they got no love lost between the cops and the cons. So we do need them though, because they keep us employed.
Well, I will say that at sometimes there was a I don't want to say mutual respect, but there was if you did your job and you were straight, always, some of those cons because I arrested a guy, and I went to testify. He had 17 baggies of meth, and I had to chase him down Sunset Boulevard, down the Sunset Strip on a busy. He made it through the intersection. I didn't. Remember I told you earlier when we started the show how judo helped me? Well, I'm going through the intersection, and here comes a car, right? So I go into tuck and roll. I get hit by the car. I roll over the hood of the car, and I land on my feet, and I'm looking at, oh, my God, I'm not hurt. I keep going after the guy, and I chase him down at the Doheny Sunset. Remember that motel?
Yes, very much.
And he had 17 bags of meth in his mouth he was trying to swallow. Probably would have killed him, but I managed to get it out. And I go to court, and I testify at the prelim on him. Or maybe it was a motion to suppress. They try to do the motion to suppress, and then I testify, and he takes a deal. And right there. And I'm on stand. He takes a deal, and it says, okay, we got a deal, Your Honor. So I'm getting up to walk away. Walk out of the courtroom, and this guy stands up, and Peter Kruger, I think, is there something like that, some name like that. He yells up, "Hey, Deputy Jordan, good job. I'll see you in a couple of years." Got a couple of years in state prison. So I mean, they're right, and of course his was an issue of addiction. So I mean, you never know who's going to be addicted. But yeah, but if they're in the life, many times, particularly if they're in violent crimes or serial thefts, they don't like the cops. But that isn't the case with everybody, right? So he takes him out of jail, and here's the other thing he sees is his Cadillac. Okay, Mike, you're a car guy, Cadillac.
Okay, it was a 1984 drop-top caddy.
Drop-top Cadillac.
1984.
It's seen better days.
It's seen better days.
I'm sorry, I apologize. It was a 1964.
64, yeah.
Cadillac DeVille. I
dated this girl in high school. She had a 65 Galaxy, but it was a convertible. So a really, the huge cars, the bench seats like this one here, and just reminded me of that. And just
I miss those seats.
But you could fit like 8 people in those damn cars. That's how big they were back in the 60s, right? And you can still see, although they had moved away from the tail fins kind of thing, you can still see a little bit of that design. You know how they had the really splashy tail fins in the late 50s, early 60s, and that it's much more subdued in this one.
Well, see, in Reggie Hammond's character talks about that. He tried to buy the last 1964 Cadillac Sky Blue, but some white guy had bought it, so he ended up with a Porsche 356.
I think he says, I tried to buy the last shit blue. I think is really the comment.
Piece of shit sky blue. Cadillac. But some white asshole has got it first.
Yeah, so it's we're kind of racing through the movie here. We got to slow down here a little bit, otherwise I'm going to be getting done here. So anyway, these guys are now developing their relationship. They are going. They know they got to go after Gans, and he's their target. And he's going to be running. Gans goes after Luther, and he kidnaps his girlfriend, and he tells Luther. So Luther says, "Hey, I can't get this stuff." So the interesting thing, because we brought up the car, is they do have parking lots that will take your car for an extended period, right? This is the first time I actually, but they do exist. It costs money, and so Reggie Hammond has paid up to snuff, and he's parked his car there for the whole time that he's going to be in jail, and that's where he hid his money. And the amazing thing is Luther's a crook, and Luther knows it. I did not believe that Luther would not go after that money the whole time Reggie Hammond's in jail and not steal it. I mean, I don't think that there's honor amongst thieves. And the only reason he did do it was his girlfriend got kidnapped by Gantz and the chief, the Indian, right? Billy Bear. Do you think that he would actually leave the money there and not go after it? Well, everybody's in jail. I think they would.
Well, he says Luther wasn't built that way. He was too scared of him to do it. And real quick, because this was the worst editing I've ever seen that was so glaring. When they first go to find Luther, it's the 30-minute mark of the movie, because I sat and watched it. There's a scene where they're driving to go find him, and 2 cars in front of them, in front of the Cadillac, is Luther driving that Porsche. But in the movie, he hadn't picked it up yet. And they made a big deal at the 1 hour mark when he goes to pick up the car, that the car had been sitting there for 3 years, and they were teasing him about it. And he goes, I was busy. And as he's driving off and they're following him after he finally picks up the car, it's the same exact scene, the same street, same cars. Somebody edited and stuck in 2 different spots in the movie.
See, this is what happens when you use police officers who worked Hollywood for a long time. They catch all these things, right? You know, they're not only catching crooks, but they're catching bad editing in movies. So thanks, Mike. And here's the other thing we need to talk about.
Bad editing should be a crime. So
absolutely, you know, they got away with it. This is they got away with it. But one of the things I do want to bring up is San Francisco. We don't see all the homeless. I don't actually see them film in the Tenderloin district. We don't really see any of that. But right now, San Francisco's kind of on its knees because of the bad policies. Jessup Bodine, and before him, Gascon. And these crazy politics that went on in the city. And the interesting thing is, because of these DAs, they're fighting each other now. The Democrats are fighting. So I've been monitoring the Chicago race, and these are 2 left of center Democrats who are fighting to be the next Kim Foxx over there, and one of them is calling the other one a right winger. And they're clearly it's Judge O'Neill. She's left of center, right? If you look at her webpage and what she's advocating for, she's tougher, obviously, than the person calling her a right winger. And the same thing is happening here in LA. They're calling all the people running against Gascon right wingers, or they're MAGA extremists. This is what some of these editorials doing, but every one of them is a moderate. I mean, I had a guy on my show. It was a judge, and he started the running club on Skid Row, and he used it as a way. So he would go run there a couple days a week, and then he'd look for people who were trying to recover, put them in his running club, and then use his connections to get wraparound services to get them off the streets. Hardly a right-wing viewpoint. In fact, he's probably left of center, and he's a moderate, but they call him all these names. But anyways, another iconic scene coming up is the Hick Bar scene. This is Eddie Murphy at his, in my opinion, as comedic best in this scene. It's Torchy's, I think, is
Torchy's.
the name. Torchy's is the name of the bar.
Chief, we're 2 minutes before the mid-show mark, so I'm gonna run the ad before the.
Okay,
the
all right,
scene.
Go ahead and do that.
Let's run that and we will have a 2-minute break, Mike, in case you need it.
Okay.
And here we go.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc. the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Okay, we are back with Morning Coffee with the Chief. It shows on YouTube and Rumble at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Make sure you like the show and share it with a friend. If you're watching us Rumble, there you have to follow us, and you can like the video and you can share it with a friend. Do that for us, because it helps with the algorithms. And when I first started, I think we were just shy of 7,000 subscribers. Now we're over 10 and approaching 11,000. So we are moving up, and the more subscribers we get, the more people get to see the content. And the thing about my show, I focus on law enforcement shows, but we have Military Monday, we have a gaming day, we have a variety of shows that you can follow on Pop Culture Minefield. And just see some really good content and really good commentary. Some of them they really get into what's going on in Hollywood today. I know that Disney is struggling these days, and they'll talk about that stuff. They'll talk about the different Marvel comics as they turn into movies. There's a variety of things that they talk about on the different shows, which are incredibly interesting. Every now and then I'll parachute in and listen to a show and say hello. But do yourself a favor, not only watch my show, but watch all the other shows on Pop Culture Minefield. So one of the other iconic scenes, in my opinion, in this movie is the Torchy Bar scene, because I think it is Eddie Murphy at his comedic best. And there's a play on all the extreme parts of racism in our society at the time, and they got the Confederate flag in this club. And I don't know if I agree with the premise, hey, all I need is a badge and an attitude and I can get away with the club, because, there's a few of us have been involved in bar fights before, and it doesn't matter if you're carrying a badge or a gun. When you're outnumbered, right? Attitude helps, but it only goes so far in my mind. But Reggie Hammond just say, all I need is a badge and an attitude, and I can get through this thing. And of course, Cates doesn't say that, but it's kind of an iconic scene where he's the new sheriff in town, and he lays down the law in this club where there's a lot of, and about, no doubt, a bunch of racists in the club. And Reggie Hammond is coming in playing the tough cop bit, which he's actually not. So what'd you think of the scene, Mike? It is an iconic scene for the movie, I think, and pop culture, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to forget. By the way, that was filmed in L.A. Torchy's is on 5th Street.
Is it really?
It's at 218 West 5th Street in downtown LA. It's been there. It's been used in other movies too. But it was a great scene. I agree with you. You can only BS your way for a couple of minutes there before it all goes south. There's too many guys in there. They don't care if they're cops or not. They're going to pound them.
Yeah.
However, the music was good. I enjoyed the music and the dancer.
The dancer, yes. Well, okay. So is Torchy's a Western themed club, or?
It was just a bar. They fixed it up to whatever you wanted for the movie.
Look at whatever you want. Okay. Martine, what do you think? Same thing, kind of an iconic scene, and one of the scenes you do remember from the movie.
Yes. This scene, part of this is reflected after when Nick goes to the other bar. I forgot his name. Oh, the bar for when
The
it's
jazz
mostly
club.
blacks.
Yeah.
And when he goes there, the barman tells him, come here often. It's very ironically in the same vein in this bartender reacts to seeing Eddie.
Yeah.
It's the second time that something like that happened in this movie, because previously the speech of "We're not friends" is reversed. Eddie says that to him, and he responded in the same way that Eddie responded to him in the first time that speech is done. But
Well,
yes, I the that part of "I am your worst nightmare because I have a badge." that line has been with me always.
yeah, it's a classic scene, and you're right. I didn't actually link the two together, but you're right. Once I think it's later on in the show, they go to
Romans.
Romans.
Romans. That's
Romans with a V. Yeah.
It's a jazz club, right? So
Yes.
and it's mostly a black club, and Nolte kind of gets challenged there, and he kind of just sloughs it off. Whatever. Yeah, I come here all the time. Yeah, I'll take this, right? And of course, these guys are calling him boy. Do you want a black Russian? I don't know why. I never drank straight vodka, but that's what he ordered. I can't imagine drinking that. I don't think so. But now he's asking question. Of course, I never heard of him. He's not going to talk to him about it. And he folded pretty quick after breaking a few glasses. We're gonna see what we can find, and then he tells them where Billy Bear, his girlfriend, is, right?
Well, I guess everything, those glasses would come out of his salary, so he's not very keen on breaking more stuff.
I don't see him folding that quickly and telling him in front of everybody. But hey, this is the movie, and attitude got him by, and he got the information he wanted, and he ends up going here. But I think I didn't actually the fight scene after this, where he realizes where Jack Cates or Nick Nolte realizes that Eddie Murphy's not telling him everything, right?
Correct.
And they ended up fighting it out because clearly. He's only getting bits and pieces, and Cates is frustrated with that. He takes the gun away from. Remember when they leave the scene too? He actually confiscates a small, I think 22 from one of these guys, and then a switchblade knife, and he ends up getting both of them from him. But here's where he does the whole thing. There's I'm looking for Billy Bear. He does this whole thing. Nobody's gonna. I'm sorry. In one of these crook kind of bars, nobody's gonna stand up. Well, let me tell you where he is, sir. That just ain't gonna happen.
So you're in a big bar like that, and it was
you got to part them out, man. I'm sorry. We have learned if you're gonna get information out of people, it's got to be a little bit of sugar. It's not going to be this forced stuff. But anyways, they go outside, and I didn't identify this as a scene. I don't believe I did anyways. But the fight scene, here we go. I guess we do got part of it. The fight scene that they get into after they leave the bar. Oh no, they're still going on here in the bar.
Scene, we don't have that scene.
That was also iconic because clearly Cates thought this was going to be a cakewalk as he's going to beat the information out of him, which never really works with suspects, right? And then Eddie Murphy ends up standing up to him in that fight, and they fight till they're exhausted. So you remember that scene, Mike? And there's something that happens at the end of the scene when the other cops got there that I thought was pretty funny. It was, if you can think about that scene.
We actually had that one of those in West Hollywood where a couple of deputies took off the gun belts and got in a rock'em sock'em fight at La Jolla and Santa Monica in the alley south of. So it happens, but they were good at it. And when they clean up at that gas station, you'll like this one, West Hollywood alumnus. That gas station was on Highland, just south of Santa Monica. It was an old Texaco. Now it's an old Starbucks with the old building. But that was right outside our area, just a short, what?
I'll have to ask you offline who were those two deputies that fought. I don't remember that. I mean, I did hear occasional stories of people
I was there. I know who it was. I'll tell you later.
Getting our frustrations, getting frustrated. I never got challenged. People just left me alone. But I think for a while there, people thought I was a little crazy, which was fine, I guess. I don't know. But I was all business, I didn't play these dumb games, I worked hard and had expectations, and I held myself high to those expectations, and I took a lot of people to jail, and there was never any, and I was decent at tactics, so it was never, I can't think of anybody challenged me ever on stuff that I was doing. So I had people say,
"You're a hard worker."
Yeah, so I had one guy ride with me. Man, I watch you. You arrest a lot of people. Yeah, I do. It's boring just driving around. That's the way I felt about it. And they had us in one-man cars lots of times. And so I preferred working the hypes and taking people to jail. But the fight scene was interesting to me. So at the end of this fight scene, we were still in the bar scene. But Cates and Eddie Murphy, they're fighting, right? And the two cops roll up. And what do the cops say as they point their handguns to him? Put your hands up. Remember what Kate said at the end of that?
Too tired to put my hands up.
I thought that was a great scene. I thought that was too fired because you know what? If you're in a knockdown drag-out fight, if you've ever been in a knockdown drag-out fight, I mean, the adrenaline flows, then you're in that fight, and eventually that adrenaline leaves your body, right? And you're exhausted. Right? You're tired and your hands are, I'm too tired to put my hands up. That actually does happen when you're in a knockdown drag out fight. I don't know how long a fight you've ever been in, Mike. I think the ones that the longest probably was maybe a 2-minute, which is kind of a long time to be fighting one-on-one with somebody.
People do not realize it's not like the movies. If you were in a 2-minute fight, you were in a big fight. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your body and your mind are thinking things very differently. And it's happening very, very quick. And you are going to get that adrenaline rush leaving you is devastating. I mean, it's very quick. It's as fast as it came on, as fast as it leaves. And you got to be completely conditioned.
I forget the name of the bar, but there was this guy who was harassing a couple of girls outside of a bar at like 2:30 in the morning. And I had a partner who was not fit. A good guy. I won't mention his name, but we get in this knockdown drag out fight with this guy who used to be a college wrestler. And if you ever tried to take a college wrestler to jail who knows what they're doing, I mean, the only advantage we had was there were two of us. He was a little older than us, and I was in really good shape, and my partner wasn't. But we're in this fight, and it lasted. Yeah, it was probably longer than 2 minutes, and we kept telling because it was before we had handhelds you can call for help. We kept telling the girls. We telling the girls, don't go, because how are we going to explain all the injuries we're causing this guy, right? And I ended up breaking his fingers to get him to put his hands behind his back. But my partner was completely spent. He was so tired he could barely lift up his sap in this fight. And at the time, I was very strong. I was running about 6 miles a day. I was in really good shape. So I wasn't really winded, but I was realizing, okay, I'm bigger than this guy. I'm stronger than this guy, but this guy knows how to fight. And I got to get him under control before my partner is completely lost, right? And I had to put your hands behind your back. I had one cuff on him, and he wouldn't put it, and then I broke his fingers, and he gave me his other hand, and that was it. But and then we took him to jail, and the watch commander said, what happened? He goes, I refused to go along with these guys. They weren't trying to hurt me. I used to be a college wrestler. He said it. He says, I just didn't want to go to jail. And it would have been nothing had I just gone along with it. Right. And, which is right. We would have probably just kept him there until the girls left, so he would stop harassing them and just let them go home. But he says, I blew it. And then my partner, because he was so embarrassed that he got spent in this fight, that we were doing a Baker to Vegas qualifier, which Martine, it's a 120-mile relay race, and I used to run on the team, and I was probably at that time doing about 6.5 minute miles for 6 miles. So I was a decent runner, but I was kind of big. But they were doing the qualifier, and he decided to run the qualifier to show that he could do it, and I won't say his name, but he struggled on that qualifier.
Did he at least qualify?
Well, he wasn't doing it to qualify. He was doing it to show that he could do it. And he came in. It was we were doing a 10K, so that's 6.2 miles. I want to say he came in at 70 minutes. So that's kind of a long time for me. I was like 42, 43. So I did pretty fast. And then, yeah. So yeah, you get spent pretty quick. And that's one of the reasons why you have to stay in shape. It's one of the reasons why I ran all those years. I didn't have time to go to the gym all the time when I was working, because when you start having kids, it gets much harder because it's their sports that are more important than you. Right. And, but yeah, you get exhausted. And so I thought, even though I didn't pick it out, that the fight scene between Nolte and Eddie Murphy was iconic. I thought it was, it's also a bonding experience for these guys, I guess.
Yeah.
And, but it's also realistic. When you're in a knockdown, drag out fight like that, you get exhausted if it goes on for a long period of time. So were you ever in something longer than a couple minutes, Mike?
No, not in the field. Not that long. A couple of fights, but they were very, very fast. And it was done with. I mean, I trained to fight, but I've never in the field had to use it for a long extended period at all. So,
I will say you learn end it quickly if you can. End it quickly. Yeah, that's why you have to use that force to overcome their force and end it quickly. Because the other part about this, and most people don't realize it, and we do in law enforcement, is when you're in a fight with somebody, you are introducing a gun to that fight when you fight as a cop. Whether it's out of your holster or not is accessible and available. Many police officers are killed with their own guns by suspects who were never armed. They just got their police officer's gun, and that was their plan all along. So when you're in a fight, you're in a close quarter fight with a suspect, you need to take him down quickly, and because you're introducing a potential gun and other weapons. Actually, I had a partner who had his baton taken away from him, and so all bets were off with that guy, and he went to the hospital. But you're introducing weapons into these things, so you have to end it quickly. And most people won't understand that when they're watching these body cam videos now. Martine, any comments on that? Nope. Okay, let's go to okay, we got to do the car scene. I think the car scene is the iconic scene. This is the Porsche Speedster. And I knew Mike was coming on, so we'll let Mike talk about the Porsche Speedster. And it's actually a replica. I did look it up. It's not the real McCoy. It's a replica. But I liked this car. I thought it was kind of cool. I have a 77 MG convertible in my garage that I take out every now and then. So I like these old, low profile, small. You're probably not going to survive an accident in these things. The Gias, the Porsches, MGBs, which have no guts, but they are fun to drive. They're almost like a go-kart. So what did you think of the car, Mike?
it was, well, very dusty. And I'm not a ragtop guy, but you're right. It was the Speedster was a replica. One of the cars that's famous that they used underneath was the Volkswagen, that they put the Porsche shell on top of it, because they were inexpensive to build and to purchase. But yeah, that was supposed to be the Porsche 356 Speedster. Not something I'd leave for 3 years with the top down in a parking garage.
I think the guys probably, you would think if you're spending that kind of money that they would wash the car before they give it to you. Yeah, but of course, he probably wanted it right away. But yeah, I think that of course you have the comparison of the two different cars. You know, this '64 Cadillac that looks like crap, and then the Porsche Roadster that once cleaned up really looks cool. In fact, it looks, even though it's dirty, it still looks cool, right? And of course, if you wanted to get away from it in the real thing, I mean, here's the other thing, and you see this in these movies all the time. You've done surveillance before, Mike. Are you going to do surveillance in a '64 powder blue Cadillac? Probably not, right?
No, you got something. It's got to be really demure. I mean, that Cadillac stands out, period, just because it was such a eyesore. So you're going to see it.
And the other thing is, if once they do see you, you're not going to be keeping up with that. If it's a true Porsche, you're not going to keep up with it in the Cadillac. As much as I like my hometown, Detroit, it ain't going to happen. I was
right, and you get two guys. You got two guys following you. That sort of sticks out. Why are there two adults following me around? So.
I was in a Nova, right? I was plainclothes. No, I was in uniform. I forget who was with me. We were in uniform, but we got put in a plane wrap, an older Nova, and it had some guts. It was pretty good. And they had a carjacking off the Sunset Strip of a Porsche. And so they went, I guess, west on Sunset Strip, and they hit San Vicente. But, of course, they were outpacing a patrol car. There was a pursuit, so they were outpacing a patrol car, and they lost a patrol car. But I guess I would have been a little bit west and a little bit south of them. So I picked them up in this Nova that didn't look like a police car, right? And so I'm chasing this Porsche, and it crashed they lost control as they tried to do a turn. I think they realized they were like looking back to see who was chasing them, and then they lost control. And they crashed into the meter things, the parking meter, right at Beverly. You know where Beverly and San Vicente, and what's the other? There's like three major intersections that kind of intersect there. I can't remember what the other street is.
Melrose.
Melrose, right? One was armed with a sawed-off shotgun. The other one was armed with a 44, right? And I had a new guy with me. And, of course, this was before they told you not to chase people by yourself, right? So they crash, and they both go in different directions, and I go after the driver, and I'm chasing him, and I'm realizing, hey, this guy's got a sawed-off shotgun, and I'm chasing him. And he turns this corner, and I realize, you know what? The better part of valor is probably nobody's been shot. I'm not going to turn my head around this corner. This guy's got a sawed-off shotgun. And we ended up doing a big containment. They ended up getting out of the containment. We did catch them sometime later. But, yeah, so chasing a Porsche is not an easy thing to do. And an American, I only got lucky because they lost control. They probably didn't know how to drive the Porsche. I imagine it was a manual. Right. And I had one of those older Novas that had, God, what did they have? Like they had like a 364 or something. It had a bigger engine in, and it could really move. So did you ever pursue getting in pursuit with a European style sports car, Mike?
Once was a Beamer, and it was a 6-mile pursuit. It ended up to be a very friendly rock and roller. It was Peter Frampton.
Oh, really?
He just wasn't pulling that damn car over. So I dealt with it as it needed to be done. But yeah, 6 miles. I'll never forget that. And as I walk up, there's this bald gentleman driving the car. And I'm not thinking anything about it. I don't know who he is. And I'm getting him out of the car and hooking him up. And I go through his wallet and pulls it out, and it's Peter Frampton. Hey, where'd your hair go? So,
where did it start at, and what was the reason?
It started on the east side of RRD over there by Carl's Jr. So it's on Santa Monica, and we ended up in Beverly Hills. So it wasn't fast. We weren't driving fast, but he just wasn't pulling over and not listening. I'm putting it on the radio, and a couple guys got in behind me, and he finally pulled over. Thank God he wasn't going very, very quick, because they always stop or 10-22-hour pursuits like that. But yeah,
they got a different attitude
nice
when and that's what most people. So West Hollywood, if you're not familiar with LA, West Hollywood is just east of Beverly Hills, right, Mike? So, and I'm trying to remember here, it's adjacent to the Hollywood Hills, the Sunset Hills, and it is just west of Hollywood proper. So if you're going to go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you just would slide a little bit south, hit Sunset, and go west, and you're going to be in West Hollywood. West Hollywood also has the Sunset Strip, which would include the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy, the Rainbow, Gazzari's. Santa Monica had the Troubadour, which is where a lot of the very famous folk singers started out their career. So if you're thinking who are the famous folk singers that people would remember? Let's see.
Jim Croce.
Jim Croce, James Taylor, and Carole King. Those were the
Elton
people.
John started there too.
Elton, and those people would play at the Troubadour, which was on Santa Monica Boulevard. And then if you when you see the documentary The Doors, there's the Alta Siena, right, the motel. He used to stay there, and which is right in West Hollywood. But he would play at the Whiskey A Go Go and some of those other clubs. And so when I was still working a beat, I remember the band's Poison.
Yep.
Not that I was a fan. I wasn't.
It's okay. Good music.
Slash Axl Rose. What's the name of that band?
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Those were the big ones that I remember. Who else do you remember from the Strip, Mike, that was hanging out? The hair bands that were hanging out in the early 80s and early 90s.
Well, you gotta remember, I was friends with those guys way back then.
I know you were, but
so you had Guns N' Roses, you had Poison, you had Rat, you had one of my favorite bands, which was Great White. They played down there all the time. L.A. Guns was another band that came up at that time. There was quite a few that came through there. A lot of them changed names. Like Rat used to be Mickey Rat. Motley Crue was a big band that came out of the Sunset Strip. And they were huge. I mean, these guys all set records at different times at Kazari's.
Kazari's.
Van Halen, we all saw play down there. Van Halen started out at the Starwood, which was on Santa Monica and Crescent Heights. And that's where they were discovered by Gene Simmons from Kiss. But they played up on the Strip also. So some great music came out of there, man.
I was working on a case, and so he's leaving L.A., Sylvester Stallone. So he was down on the Strip, and some paparazzis were taking pictures, and he punched one of them. And I didn't have the case, but Winkler, remember Winkler? He had the case. And so we went to Stallone's house. And of course, his house isn't just a house with a normal driveway. I mean, it's got like 100-yard driveway, and he's got a houseboy that goes to the drive or the end of the drive with a Mercedes to meet us. and as you drive up his driveway, so part of it is gated, meaning you can't go past a certain point, but the other part of it, is open, right? And he had palm trees on each side of it, and each one of those palm trees is pretty expensive. I want to say they were like $10,000 each palm tree on each side of his driveway, leading up 100 yards to the house, right? And he came down, and the houseboy came down in the car, the Mercedes, the house car, I guess, to meet us, and says Sylvester wasn't home. But what I tell that story because that was a big part of the playground for Hollywood, is the Sunset Strip. A lot of people intersect there. I mean, my round two, when I went back to West Hollywood, I was the lieutenant in charge of, I don't know if you were still there were you there when I was a lieutenant, Mike?
No.
Okay. And I mean, I saw Hugh Hefner there. He would be out every weekend and be seen with some good looking gals who, I mean, guy looked ancient, yet he still had these beautiful gals with him. So everybody wanted to be seen on Sunset. And if you were, because it's cheap publicity, right? The paparazzi's out there, they get a picture of you at Kazari's, and then suddenly you're on some trade magazine, you're on TMZ or whatever, right?
Well, actually, they were getting paid. So what they do is it's set up. The clubs will pay them to appear, and then the paparazzi's notified. It's not like it's some giant coincidence.
So I got Mr. Hollywood with me here today. So do you want to tell the Eddie Murphy story without, you don't have to?
Well, you want that one or the one about the girl?
Well, do both.
Okay, so in this movie, 48 Hours, there's a bit part. One of the dancers at Vroman's is Ola Ray, and most people recognize Ola Ray as the girlfriend of Michael Jackson's character in the video Thriller. So the only reason we bumped into her in West Hollywood, she got arrested down on Poinsettia in Santa Monica for domestic violence. And unfortunately, at that time, she was misusing heroin. I mean, let's be honest about it. That's what it was. So she went to jail. Very, very different than what you saw in the videos and the TV and the movies. I'm sure she's cleaned up, and that's way behind her. But the Eddie Murphy story was in 1997. And Mr. Murphy, according to him, was helping out a gentleman at Croissant in Santa Monica. Well, any cop in Hollywood or West Hollywood knows that at Croissant in Santa Monica, that's where you pick up male prostitutes, what we called transformers back then, gentlemen dressed as women. And you knew what prostitute you were getting because that's the area they worked specifically. Mm-hmm. And he got pulled over right away by a couple of undercover West Hollywood deputies. Nothing had happened yet as far as the crime itself. The prostitute himself, he got arrested because he had a warrant for prostitution already. And there was a lot of stuff that came out in the press about it and this and that. And about a year later, the guy mysteriously fell off the 5th floor of his apartment building and died just as he was suing Mr. Murphy, or allegedly about to sue Mr. Murphy and write a tell-all book. But it was all supposition, and you can't go any farther than that because nobody knows, I guess, the truth.
What's he suing for? Defamation? I mean, it's. I do have to clarify. Why did we call them Transformers? So if you think of the
more than meets
tagline,
the eye.
More than meets the eye from Transformers. So how the car changes into this big robot, and they say more than meets the eye. So if you're picking up a prostitute that looks like a female but is actually a male, so when you call them a transformer, there's more than meets the eye, right? So that's why we call them that. And yes, that is a little bit of cop humor, probably not politically correct these days, but we weren't asking people pronouns back then. I don't think anybody cared about it. It's funny, they didn't care about it. They did want to be called, if they had a girl's name, they wanted to be called by the girl's name on the street. And
the deputies did. We
did. Yeah, well, it's easier.
Women, we referred to them as women. The respect was given as far as that. We were looking to get the Johns, and look, the guys, the girls, we had no girls in West Hollywood. They all came back to the same spot. It's not like they didn't know us.
Yeah, so, I was investigating a case as a lieutenant, and they had made a complaint about a couple of deputies, and my witnesses that cleared the deputies were transformers. They were they were female, these prostitutes, right? But the deputies did the job. They did it right. They were actually called there to help them because they were getting harassed by an aggressive customer. And that customer made a complaint against them, but they came through, even though it's, well, we don't like the cops, but they didn't do anything wrong. And this is what happened. So we ended up clearing the deputies, and I had some higher ups, believe it or not, they were harassing me about that case. I said, why are we believing this guy? He's out there engaging with these prostitutes, and just because he's made an articulate complaint doesn't mean it's true. Why I was getting pressure from an assistant sheriff's office. I didn't understand why. And so I told my investigator, because I was running detectives at the time, I said, go out 2 a.m. They all hang out at the Yukon Mining Company when they're done working, and have dinner together or breakfast, whatever they're having, at 3 a.m. It's funny because they all knew each other, right? And
those of us deputies that would speak to them, I talk to them all the time. You could get some decent information.
Oh, yes,
sometimes.
Absolutely.
If someone had a gun, they were very afraid of that. They would let you know.
Yep.
And they were good about getting license plates and cars. That was always good. So if you look,
it was a certain night of the week too. They were there, and so I sent the investigators out. I said, okay, this happened on a Tuesday or Thursday. I said, go out, same thing, same time, and go to the Yukon and see if because they might have been an informant on a report, but trying to track them down through their phone numbers or their addresses was a hard thing to do. But they were going to work, and they were going to be at the Yukon Mining Company after they worked, right? So I sent them out, and sure enough, they found the witnesses. Oh yeah, we remember, and we cleared the deputies, and they said, well, we don't like you guys, but you guys were helping us that night, and you guys did the right thing. All right, I guess we're going to get back to our show here, but that's Hollywood. That's why we have all these stories of stars going bad. I still have some of my own that I haven't told on the show, so you'll have to stick around and watch Morning Coffee with the Chief as more and more of these stories leak out. Okay, let's go right back to the bus scene. Now, I thought this was one of the of all the things you're going to try and do a hostage swap in and get away from a scene of a crime. The bus scene, I can't imagine a bus being something that you use as a getaway car, right? I don't see it, right? And so on the bus scene, let's go ahead and start the bus scene, Martine. And it's the stolen bus, and so they got Luther's girlfriend on the bus, and they're going to do the exchange. And of course, Luther has the money. I have no idea why he thinks he's going to survive this with this guy, because Gans has proven himself to be just a killer. He has to know what he's all about, and he thinks he's going to go give the money and get his girlfriend. This is the initial scene at the.
That's Romans.
That's Romans, right? This is
Romans with a V.
Yeah, but here's when.
Yeah, they leave this. So they leave this, and then they see Luther on the move, right? And so he's on the move. He's going to do the exchange, right? And so Luther ends up on this bus. But what I did not, they all knew that this guy was psycho, Gans, and even the Indian is psycho too, right? And why you think you're going to do an exchange with these guys? Hey, yeah, we got a visitor. Hey, Gerry.
He's a psycho in real life too, Sonny.
Who, Sonny? Yeah,
he's crazy. I love this movie. I'm glad you're talking about it today.
He played ball. You know, this is my friend Mike Ascolese. He's also on retired deputy sheriff, and we were just telling some Hollywood stories. People got arrested and interacted with us when we worked Hollywood. Mike was more in tune to that stuff, and all the people who played the Sunset Strip. And this is why he told us about a pursuit he had with Peter Frampton just before you came on.
Little Dickie Frampton, huh? Yeah. That's what my mother-in-law used to call him. She wouldn't call him Peter. She'd call him Little Dickie. But I'm curious at the beginning, you know, when he loses his weapon.
Yeah.
What was you guys' reaction? I didn't catch it because I was
it's not that he lost his weapon; he gave it up, and we.
I know that's the problem.
That's the problem, and I thought he had the advantage. The other thing is he's using .44, and I always talk about the throwbacks to other movies. This is San Francisco. Dirty Harry used a .44, although Cates is a 4-inch. Dirty Harry's is a 6-inch. But no, we all agreed. Why did you? One, we're taught never to give your gun up.
Never lower your weapon. Never give up your weapon.
Yeah, and why did he? You know, he actually had the advantage because if you're on target and they're waiting for you to react, you actually have the advantage.
Right.
Because they have to react to your action, and he should have just been shooting. But I don't know. I mean, the one guy, because we all agree, don't give up your gun.
Yep. And I don't want to stick around because I really do. I've got some stuff I want to do. I just want to stop in and say hi. Also deliver my favorite line from the film. Jack, tell me a bedtime story. Fuck you. Oh, that's my favorite.
Yes, when they're doing their surveillance. There's some iconic scenes that I like the Roxanne scene.
Oh my God, Roxy! Oh my God.
And then the Torchy's bar scene. There's a new sheriff in town. It's Reggie Hammond. Just how he handles that whole scene in the bar is also classic Eddie Murphy, because this kind of helped launch his movie career.
This was my last R-rated movie I saw with my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After that, I was on my own. I was old enough to go see him by myself. I was like, yay! But anyway, go ahead. I'm gonna hop out, Patrick. I just want to stop in and say hi to you guys. And all right. I'm glad you're doing this show. Nice to meet you, Mike.
You too, sir. Take care.
I'll see you later, Martin.
See ya.
Yeah. So this bus scene, I thought I remember this was one of the oldest scenes that I remember from the movie. And here, this guy is. He was on. What was he on, Mike? He was on. Was he Starsky and Hutch?
Okay, you talking about the captain?
Yeah.
Okay, no, he was not. He was in Walking Tall Part 2, and he was in a bunch of Stallone movies. He was in Fist, Paradise Alley, and Rocky Number 2. And he was even in Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn movie. And then he shows up in the second movie, Another 48 Hours.
And he plays they always have these angry captains, right? And he calls Eddie Murphy a convict. What are you hanging out with that convict? But he also played football. I looked him up. He played, he's a big guy, and he played pros for a little while, and then moved on. But I don't remember being anything other than really a character actor, right? In any of these stuff here. But also, come on, I ran a detective bureau. I was a captain. I can't remember once raising my voice. And yet you see in these movies, these captains and lieutenants are losing it. They're yelling and screaming, and that just doesn't, pointing their fingers. I'm sorry, I can't think of a time anybody actually, I can think of some people that acted in despicable ways that were higher up, but never where they're yelling and screaming and,
they were always sneaky about it.
Yeah, they're sneaky about it. It isn't this upfront yelling and screaming. I just can't remember any stuff, but this kind of makes the movie, right? I guess this is the way Hollywood is. They have to, because you don't make it the captain and lose your self-control like this for the most part, right?
Well, and he actually was acting just like the guy in Starsky and Hutch. You're right. It's not the same actor, but that guy's name was Bernie. He did the same stuff. He yelled at him, point his finger, and that kind of stuff out the window.
Yeah, and when we get to do Beverly Hills Cop, same kind of thing. The inspector in there, he's actually a real cop, Gilbert Hill, kind of yelling and screaming, and that just doesn't happen. But anyways, on the bus scene, Cates loses his classic car because I think it gets crashed here. It's interesting. They do find another classic car for him in another 48 hours. But I thought the bus scene was interesting. And the thing about that is Luther does give the guy the money. Then he asks the question, "How are you?" to his girlfriend. And Gantz is, of course, offended. Not that he needed any reason to kill Luther. He was going to kill him anyways, right? But he uses that as a pretext for being offended, and he ends up killing Luther. So, to some degree, I'm thinking, I don't think these guys would be that stupid in real life. They would know what this guy Gantz is all about, and I don't think that they would probably negotiate a different kind of exchange. Don't you think, Martin?
Yeah. Luther should have played the thing better from the beginning. He, instead of, oh my God, Gunston, hey, how are you, man? And, no, you go on. No, I will stay with you, so you can watch me all the time. Then we go together, get the money. I will play the situation to get a favorable outcome, considering they have the girlfriend.
Yeah, it would have been an exchange that would have been much more public. Not that these well, they did try to do a public one. I think at the what are the
I think he wasn't
the bus station or the train station.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting them to have control of the bus.
Right. That's right.
You can see the surprise on his face when he sees Billy in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and unbelievable scene, but again another iconic scene. But that's what really, this is one of those fun movies that if I'm scrolling for something to look for and I see another 48 hours, I'm put it on to watch as I'm doing something else, because I do a lot of research for shows, and I'll put the TV on. I think the movie Gladiator. I love the movie Gladiator. There's so many different movies that I'll watch this one again, and I would watch this one more than once. Go ahead.
You remember, now they spotted Luther. That's why Eddie Murphy's character Reggie didn't go across the hotel with the beautiful girl he picked up.
Yeah.
Did you recognize the beautiful girl?
No, I did not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
that's Olivia Brown, and she was one of the main detectives in Miami Vice.
Oh.
So she was also in Streets of Fire. That's one of my favorite movies. She was in Beverly Hills 90210, but Miami Vice is where I first saw her, and she was always a really good character. Candy in this movie.
Candy. So when our captain is yelling at both of these guys, and what do you think in taking a convict out of prison, and he calls him convict, and he's not very nice about him, about Reggie, and Jack actually defends him. So this is where that they begin to form a friendship. I'll leave it at that, just a friendship, right? And allegiance to each other. And that does, when you work with guys and you've been through a lot, you have different relationship with guys that are your partner, that you go through a lot of drama with. If you end up having an extended partner for a long period of time where you're dealing with high risk situations, that does happen, right? There's a little more of a bonding than just the other guys on the shift, right?
Right.
So So you see that, and they develop respect. And I don't know about he's the smartest cop I've ever worked with. And when he says all that stuff, I go, I don't know about that. He's just a crook who knows where the money's at. What do you mean this is the smartest guy? He knows who all the players are. He doesn't have to do investigations. He knows what's up. As he says later on, why didn't we just come and sit on this car? Why did we go all over town? Well, going all over town made for a good movie, but. So I don't agree with him being the smartest guy in town, but it's very entertaining that their interaction. And you know what? The thing about this is, Nick Nolte was the big star, right? Eddie Murphy was on SL, and after this, very quickly, Eddie Murphy ended up skyrocketing and becoming the big star. I heard when they did another 48 Hours, it had shifted. Right. Eddie made a lot more money than Nick Nolte, and the first one, it was Nick Nolte making a lot more money than Eddie Murphy. It switched around. Their professional dynamics switched around, and that they ended up having a little bit of friction on the set of another 40 Hours, which we'll have to talk about when we do that show. But so they lose these guys in the bus scene. They get yelled at. He's told to take Eddie back to prison. And they decide, that they're going to check out one more location, which, in this kind of situation where they killed two cops, just to clarify, every location somebody would be sitting on every location. They wouldn't be guessing. We would have people on every single possible location that they would go to, including the alleged lesbian girlfriends who weren't quite so lesbian in Chinatown, right? So there's Billy Boys, Billy's, and you go ahead and do that Chinatown scene. Now, in this scene, they go in, and he actually gives Reggie a gun, right? And they go in to the scene, and this is the scene where I was talking about, where it's reflective of a movie that follows it, right? And so Reggie Hammond here is going into this apartment. This is kind of a big apartment too. I don't know where. They must have a lot of money. But here, this is the scene. Okay, so if you watch, what does Billy Boy do? He stands up and he pulls his knife, right?
Correct.
And he's ready to go out. So what does this remind you of course?
Predator.
Absolutely. I wonder when they did the Predator movie, because he had a big knife in Predator too, right?
Yeah.
In that Predator movie, and he says somebody's following us. And he gets himself at a narrow point on the trail on a tree, takes his shirt off, and then cuts his chest and he's going to fight. So he's bare chested with a big knife in his hand, and he's going to fight the Predator, which is exactly what is going on in this scene. And in both cases, he knows he's going to die, but he's going to go out with this big knife. So, yeah, you saw that too, Martina, right? And so when these movies, it's like they must watch the other movie and says, okay, let's have him die this way. You know what I mean? Because it's similar to 48 Hours. Let's repeat that scene a little differently. Did you catch that, Mike?
Yeah, you get an actor who had a good scene. If he can reinterpret it slightly for something else, and the director goes with it, then he goes with it.
Yeah.
Not to mention that James Horner basically retooled this soundtrack for Commando. It's almost the same thing.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
We'll have to look at it.
You have to watch Commando and this one and pay attention to the music and say, oh, you copied your own homework.
Well, the other thing about it is I forget what movie we were doing, and the music really helps to build the tension, in a lot of movies, and so it is really important. You don't realize how important it is until you actually pay attention. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock was good at this. They would use the music to build the tension, because how do you build tension without having, like even Jaws, dun 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 dun. So the music and the soundtrack help build the tension to the show. And I enjoyed the soundtrack.
It was the Bus Boys.
The Bus Boys, yes. Yeah.
And one of their players, and you saw him in this movie, was Vic Johnson, the guitar player, who went on to play for some guy named Sammy Hagar.
Some guy. Did you ever get down to Cabo Wabo down in down in Mexico?
No, I haven't traveled down there. I heard it's very empty because everyone that used to live there is illegally up here now.
Yeah, we used to go down to Cabo a lot, and so we went there a couple times. Not that I never really wanted to party in town when I was in Cabo San Lucas. I prefer to just stay on the resorts. It's safer. But yeah, we had to go down there and visit. It's I think his tequila is called Cabo Wabo, I think.
Yeah,
it is.
Wabo. Yeah, he had his own tequila. Yeah,
he has his own tequila. So anyway, so Billy Boy, he gets killed, and of course, Cates is now pursuing Gantz, and Gantz manages to escape, of course. And here's where the buddy part of the movie comes in, and Eddie Murphy is going down this alleyway that we know Gantz is in, and Gantz ends up getting the drop on Eddie Murphy or Reggie Hammond. And we're back to the scene again where he's got Cates' gun, he's got a hostage, he's got the money, and he's expecting Cates to give up the gun this time, and he doesn't, of course. So here he is. Here's our great actor, James Remar. And there's no love lost between these two guys. If I had to think, they were in this crew of crooks, although we don't get to see the Asian guy very much, there's two alpha males in this crew, and that would be Reggie Hammond and Gantz. Do you agree, Mike?
Yeah, both alpha males, smart, streetwise. So yeah, I could see them being polar opposites on things.
And so here we go, and I like the setting here too. We have all of the neon lighting, which I always liked, and where I really did you ever work City Walk, Mike, where they have all the neon art? Worked
a ton of overtime up there.
Yeah, I know, and they have all the neon art, and I really liked neon art. I mean, if I and then so when you see this scene, you see all this neon art that they have there. That's kind of cool. And then obviously they're using those not misting machine. What do they call those machines where they create the fog machine, right? And
right.
And then you see he says, "Go ahead, come on, cop," and this time he ain't going to give up his gun. And of course he does this very quick shooting thing, which of course I'm like, okay, why wouldn't you just take your time, aim, shoot? It's almost at the hip shooting. Yeah, he just raises and shoots, right? And and of course he hits him. And Gantz has a pretty quick exit on this. He goes down, and then Reggie Hammond says, I was only kidding. I didn't mean for you to shoot. Right. So I like the scene. Obviously, it gets the result. There's Gantz. Gantz has been shot. You shot? Well, I don't believe I got shot. Well, yeah, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? And you're done. End of story. Who else? There was another movie, and I couldn't think of where that said, "You're done. End of story." They used that line in another movie, and I couldn't think of the movie. And I thought it would have been nice had they said, maybe came up with a different line. But then he shoots him again and ends up killing him. And then you get the banter starts between Reggie Hammond and Cates. So what'd you think of the scene, Mike? Obviously just quick point and shoot, probably not the best way to take him out. Probably unlikely that he's going to hit him. But it is the movies.
Yeah, I mean, shooting through someone else, that's a heck of a tough shot to make. But it is a movie. I mean, it would work in theory. I don't know if I'd necessarily want to try it. Maybe time to catch him a little bit later.
Yeah. Yeah. So how's he going to leave? As soon as he lets Reggie, if he shoots Reggie, I mean, come on, let's play this out logically. Shoots Reggie, you shoot him, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, one less convict.
He tries to drag Reggie, you just keep following him, and eventually more cops are going to come, right? That's number two.
And if there is a shooting, then you have to worry about the paper. Someone else has to write that one.
That's true. So, if he leaves Reggie without shooting him, he gets. So I mean, he's really at the disadvantage. Gantz is.
Right.
He's at the disadvantage, right? So I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to shoot him. So if you play it out logically, of course, this is entertainment. This isn't logic. This isn't. So Martine, what'd you think of the scene?
I liked it. just right until the point in which Gant runs towards the cops who's pointing a gun at him. If you're gonna do something, at least try to shoot, not charge. What was he thinking? If I run at him, he will flinch. What's he playing chicken? No.
Yeah, you're right. Because the more distance you put, the greater the likelihood. Again, so let's put the logical cap on. The more distance you put between you and the guy that's going to try and shoot you, the more difficult the shot it is for him. And of course, they're just playing. This guy's just a psycho, and so psychos do this kind of thing. But no, it's been my experience that most criminals are generally logical thinkers. They want to get away. So they're going to do those things that maximize their likelihood they're going to get away. I actually think once he's got the money, he's not waiting for anybody. He's just going. And here's the thing about crooks. I hope we don't have any crooks listening. If you the crook that if you're on a foot pursuit, the crook that goes to ground, meaning he hides, is the one that gets caught. Right, Mike? The crook that keeps running stands a better chance of getting away. Right?
Yeah, if you go to ground, we're going to coordinate it. Chances are they're going to get a dog if it's possible. And we're getting tired too, so we're going to be walking around looking for you. You keep running, we're going to run out of steam. And nobody wants to get that far from their car. And
even as you set up your containment, there's only so many blocks that you can contain.
Right.
And if you keep moving, even if it's not running, like you just keep moving. You're moving away, and you're finding your way out of the containment. The person who keeps moving stands a better chance of getting away than the person who stays and hides.
Correct. Plus, you might get spotted by a neighbor. You might get picked up on a camera. You just keep walking. Yeah, I agree. I would keep walking.
Well, I don't see our regular audience on here, so I'm going to tell our regular audience, if you just heard that tip, that that's just for your consumption. It's not for your use, right? But yeah, that's it. We did some exercises, and remember where we used to go to? I think it was the horse race, whatever, and some groups would hide, and then the other guys had to find them. Right. And I learned pretty quick, you're probably going to be found if you stay, and you're probably going to get away if you keep moving, right? And particularly depending on the time of day. And then obviously the crooks will layer many times. So as they're moving away, they'll take off the outer layer, so their description is different. They'll pop off their hat, things like that. So if you're smart, you keep moving. If you're a crook that's been captured before, you keep moving. You don't sit put, because you're going to get caught. All right, we are at the end of our show, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me for 2 hours, Mike. I appreciate all the research you've done for the show. And folks, you can catch us every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube and Rumble. Be sure, if you're following us on YouTube, to subscribe to the channel, like the show, forward it to a friend. And if you're following us on Rumble, on that one, you follow us on Rumble, and you like the show, and you share it with a friend. Anything for the cause, Mike?
Hey, please check out Fueled by the Fallen. They're on Facebook.
Oh.
So those are the vehicles that honor our law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty, and military that were killed in action.
Give me a second,
We'll get up here.
I can put both links, both Facebooks and X, for Fueled by the Fallen.
And if you get a chance, walk up to an officer, tell them thank them for their service. Same with military.
Police Week's coming up. Police Week's coming up in May, and maybe we'll get a banner, and we'll be ready to talk about Police Week during the month of May. Police Week happens around the country, and certainly in D.C., where they dedicate all the new names to the Police Memorial in Washington, D.C. I want to say it's May 12th through whatever that 7 days is, May 22nd, something like that. There we go. Let's see. Fuel for the Fallen on Facebook, and go ahead and check it out, and you can certainly make a donation as well, right? And you can follow them on Twitter as well. It's our friend Kevin Major Howard started that, and his friend Mike Ascolese, the person on the show, moved it from just military to military and law enforcement, and it is your way to show appreciation. We do have Police Week coming up in May. Yeah, check it out. Just Google Police Week, and you'll see all the festivities in California. They do something up in Sacramento, and they also do things locally for the LA County Sheriff's Department and the officers who had passed away in the line of duty in LA County during dedicating their inclusion to the memorial wall is usually what happens here in LA, and that happens in DC, it happens in Sacramento, and it happens in many places around the country. I think we are at the end of our shows, guys, and thank you for joining us again on Pop Culture Minefield's Morning Coffee with the Chief. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Martine. Martine, you can take it away.
See ya.
Take care.